that to you and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Who Dat Confessional podcast, where tonight it's fight night. Dennis Allen versus Michael Thomas. We already know who would win in that fight, but for real, contention from the players and the coaching staff. Who could have seen this coming? Well, if you've been watching the show, we've been saying it's there, but whatever. Well, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, hope y'all having a fantastic day. And I assume you are, because we're all here. You managed to live through the craziness that is this past game. You made it to Tuesday. And now we're going to talk about everything going around with the New Orleans Saints. We don't have a full-on confirmation of the severity of Derek Carr's injury. We'll have that next episode. We'll get those first injury reports out tomorrow, but I'm very curious to see what happens with this MTDA situation. Now, to celebrate the New Orleans Saints sticking with Dennis Allen, for those who have missed it, we have made the most amazing t-shirts that you need to add to your collections today. Why do you need them? Because they feature the greatest quotes of all time. Keep doing what you're doing, and we gotta be better. Shout out to those who've already purchased some of the greatest shirts ever made in the stardom of the New Orleans Saints. We gotta be better and keep doing what you're doing. Shout out to those who've already purchased. Get yours for a limited time. These Dennis Allen themed Saints merchandises will not be available for long, because hopefully the New Orleans Saints fire him. But until then, you can rock a hilarious t-shirt /hat /mug and support a channel while doing it. Yes, a couple people have actually purchased the shirt, so thank you to those. And keep chopping wood. We're going to have to just have a whole slate of Dennis Allen phrases that mean nothing until this team actually shows some level of consistency on the football field. Shout out to those who are here with us live. We appreciate every single one of you. Brian W. II, Raheem Guillon, Al Rowe 337, Vic Boy Payne Music. Would love to hear some of your tracks, man. Jimbo Bruno, Crass number 4, 504 and Company, Eric Howard Dre, Day Shane O'Mac 992, Ras Trey Nelson, Slade Smith, Derek Powell, and everybody else coming through the show tonight. Where, man, this Michael Thomas thing is a trip. And I remember watching him post these things on Twitter, now known as X, and I really didn't have any issue with what he was saying. I thought that he was just being pretty straight up. For those who missed it, I'll put some of it on the screen as we discuss it, but this is from NBC Sports, which is in the background. One thing I've noticed when it comes to like all these media posts that have been happening about the interaction between, Michael Thomas and Dennis Allen, etc., is that they conveniently leave out a couple of his tweets, but honestly doesn't matter. He did comment about how wide open A.T. Perry was. Well, guess what? So did everybody else. And yeah, I don't think that's a big deal. And then he also later wrote, when your eyes don't work, you get people hurt. It's no mystery, and it's something that needs to be studied. And then Dennis Allen would come out on Monday, so right at yesterday, and say that in terms of what's going to happen, we're going to keep it in-house, but that he was made aware of it last night. And I'm just going to be really real. I don't blame him for what he said. I don't honestly see an issue with what he said. Maybe I'm wearing, some Michael Thomas colored glasses, but what did he say that was wrong? Now, I don't think that this means that he doesn't support his teammates in his locker room, but where's the lie, right? And to be fair, I do think that Derek Carr has been failed just as much as Derek Carr has failed. I think that's a fair statement. What do I mean by that? I mean that this coaching staff refuses to take any accountability. We can even discuss the front office not taking accountability. And I would say that, yeah, if coaching were better, a mid-tier at best quarterback like Derek Carr might be a little bit better. So yeah, I would say the franchise has failed Derek Carr a little bit. And by the way, I know Jono, I like to call him Jono just to bug him, commented this on his show. If you're one of those Saints fans who are like literally adding Derek Carr's family to like trash talk him, that's like stupid. And don't be an idiot. Like, why would you, what kind of horrible human being are you? Don't do crap like that. That's stupid. Leave that man's family alone. Trash him for what he does on the field, but leave his family out of it. That's real gross to see people doing stuff like that. Social media and the internet has become a very dark, weird place sometimes. But Michael Thomas, I really don't have an issue with what Michael Thomas said. I think Michael Thomas was simply speaking the truth from his couch because he's hurt. He's on IR. Now, can Michael Thomas at times tweet things that he shouldn't be tweeting? Well, yeah. This is not Michael Thomas's first time on Twitter getting in trouble. I don't know how many of y'all remember this, but this has happened several times before, multiple times in the past. We've seen this man be active. Remember when he got into the feud with Josh Norman, right? Remember when he was talking about how you talked that Niners-Vikings game, how he talked anyone got one catch, and he had 7 with a broken hand. I mean, this man has been very vocal before to talk trash, right? He's done it plenty of times. I remember when, Andrew Doak with WWL commented something about how he didn't like how MT talked smack, and Michael Thomas was going to be like, oh, you're not going to call me out. And he went after him on Twitter, called him goofy. So this is not Michael Thomas's first time to have a little Twitter run-in and little Twitter fingers. Now, I will say that Michael Thomas typically backs up all of his Twitter fingers, so I'm not calling this man anything insulting. But I will say, what exactly was he wrong about? What exactly did he say that was in error? Yes, Juwan Johnson absolutely should have caught his pass. That interception is not on Derek Carr. However, missing A.T. Perry was, right? Missing that read was. Now, to Derek Carr's credit, and I guess it sucks to say this, in terms of reading the field and being quick to process, Derek Carr arguably had his best game of the season before literally getting knocked out of the game by Bruce Irvin. Completed 15 straight passes, had that fantastic pass to Chris Olave, was very quick and decisive. It just didn't really end up happening long term because he got hurt. And the man's now suffered 2 concussions. I think there's a legitimate argument that Derek Carr shouldn't play this week no matter what, and that if you've taken 2 concussions in that short of a time span, you probably need a little bit of time off, which opens the door for Jameis Winston to practice with the ones, be with the ones, and see what Jameis Winston can do, who in his very limited moments has not really shown anything, but we know that Jameis Winston still wants to be a starting quarterback in this league, so opportunity presents itself, you take advantage, or at least you attempt. But I see Michael Thomas as a guy who wants to be a winner. I see Michael Thomas the same way that I see Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a little bit more tactful in how he responds, and I think that's why Alvin Kamara is more seen as a leader of the locker room and why Alvin Kamara is more seen as a face of a franchise. He's much more tactful with how he says and does things. But does he believe any different than Michael Thomas? I don't honestly think so. I think a lot of people are on the same page. And accountability is such a big deal for me because I don't see the coaching staff taking it. And also, before anybody says something in the chat, Derek Carr hasn't taken enough accountability either. There's plenty of touchdowns that he's left on the field, and while he has been efficient, he's been very Derek Carr. I mean, if you look at Derek Carr's career, he's on pace for low 20s touchdowns, low interceptions, and lots of yards. Well, congratulations, everybody. You got Derek Carr. It's exactly what he's always been, just slightly worse, and I think a lot of that worse is Pete Carmichael, but if he thought he was going to throw 40 touchdowns, well, sorry, no Mighty Morphin Drew Brees today. But if this leads to something, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if Dennis Allen takes this too far, where we're cutting or getting rid of Michael Thomas, I think you're getting rid of one of the most passionate people you have in the locker room who is actually pushing you to be a winner. And I think the locker room is important. Why? Because I believe the locker room is a hell of a lot stronger and a hell of a lot more talented than the coaching staff as a whole. We said last episode that I do believe there's some really good coaches on the team, just low numbers of them. But how is Dennis Allen going to handle this? Now, he said specifically in the quote that we'll keep that in-house. So that does seem to make it sound like nothing is going to happen ridiculous to Michael Thomas, as in getting cut or something like that. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm a bad businessman here, and maybe I should be more along the lines of how things should go from a business standpoint. But the man deactivated his Twitter account. I think the only thing you should tell him to do is if you don't like what he's saying, tell him to just stay off the internet. But he did take it a step further after that for those who missed it. Now, if you missed how he took it a step further, he actually went to Instagram. What did he do on Instagram? He posted a video of a Drew Brees interview. And in this interview, the short of it was talking about having to make the throw as the quarterback and then trusting the wide receiver to make the reception. He then put this underneath the video. We know the truth. Some do, some don't. And this was posted after his Twitter account was deactivated. So there is quite clearly a divide, as I said there was a month ago, as we thought there was. I don't want to take credit as if like I created the divide, but when we saw AK and DA both saying things that contradicted each other, that's a red flag, right? Well, I think we have the same thing here, just further proof that this locker room, while I do believe this locker room is unified, if you remember Sunday, one thing, and you saw this, I know I didn't put out a film study today. It's real tough to put out film study on losses, but I will say this, going back and having watched the tape, you can see the resiliency of this team on the field, and I love that about them. Every player, resilient, wants to win. Wants to win. You know, I think the locker room is together, and I don't want to lose MT for that. And if MT is lost just because he can't play well anymore, that's one thing. But besides the fact that, as Juan points out, it's an opportunity for us to make Keep It In-House t-shirt, get your... if you haven't already, get your We Gotta Be Better and Keep Doing What You're Doing t-shirts at revjuice.com/Saints podcast. But beyond that, in all seriousness, there are very few players that have the mentality that an Alvin Kamara has, right? And I'm not saying that people get to the NFL and don't care about it. I'm just saying that there are some guys who just have a special grind level, and some of those got that grind level. They have it, right? And I think MT's one of those. You know, MT, before his injury, was on pace for around 900 yards. I mean, basically having not played real football consistently for 3 years and able to do that, that's impressive. And you can tell that he's passionate on the field and wants to win. And I love that Chris Olave is taking a step up and is really trying to, get out of his slump that he was in. Love that Chris Olave performed this past game and did a great job, honestly, in my opinion. I think his film was some of his best tape all year long. But Dennis Allen has to be very careful with how he handles this in-house, man, because I do believe that there's a divide between the player base and between the coaching staff. And if he starts ostracizing and he starts, pushing deeper into this divide, they need to have a real sit-down, come-to-Jesus meeting, right? It's like we discussed on the recap show. This team has to win basically 4 of their final 5 games or minimum 3 out of 2 and get help to make it to the playoffs. Now, they did this last year. If y'all remember, they won, 4 of their final 5 games? Or, 3 of their final 4 games. So they did make a late push last year, and this year that same push could put them in the playoffs. But we need to see something better. Dre says, Colin Saunders stated that the defense doesn't prepare enough. He knows he's a Super Bowl champion. He is a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I do respect his opinion. I will say that this New Orleans Saints defense needs to be much better with how they come out. But I will give them also the credit that when they are here, like when they do figure it out, they're back to being good. That's what you saw against Detroit, right? Their first 3 touchdowns, they gave up just very, very, very scary to see 7 minutes and just points. But they cracked down. They buckle down and they stop. But you can't give an NFL team, especially a good NFL team, that many points ahead of time and just expect to easily come on back. But I mean, I do think there's a lot that needs to happen. And it really comes down to this coaching staff needs to admit and take accountability for their failures. And we need to get them back on track together. Giovanni says, hey, Deuce, I know this is totally off topic, but have you noticed how much worse Mahomes is this year? Could this be due to Eric Bieniemy leaving? And we should strongly consider him as our new head coach. I don't have any knowledge to correlate that with. And what I mean by that is I have not studied Patrick Mahomes this year in terms of film study. I don't know what he's doing. And I don't really know that much of what Eric Bieniemy is doing for Washington. Do I know he's with Washington? Yeah. And I can give you the basics of what the stats for Washington are, but I haven't studied Washington, so I can't really tell you yes or no on that one. I'll just do this real quick. Real quick. Uno momento. Por favor. Here is Eric Bieniemy and where they rank 12th in yards passing, but they're first in attempts and 15th in touchdowns. That's not exactly amazing. Now, I'm not trying to trash talk Eric Bieniemy at all. I'm just simply saying it's not like he went over to Washington, certainly lighting it up and causing amazing things. They throw more than literally anybody in the NFL, and they're mid at it. I don't necessarily know if that has anything to do with Mahomes or not. I just haven't studied enough of either situation to know. Would I take Eric Bieniemy over Pete Carmichael? Oh, absolutely yes. Absolutely. Would I automatically pick him to be my head coach? I'm not saying that. Right? I don't know enough about him to know why he hasn't been a head coach already, honestly. You know, like I realize that he's from New Orleans, so automatically we want to love and support that. And I think that he should get supported. This man's had so many head coaching interviews and never gets the daggum job. Why is that? I don't have the answer. But I will say that other guys, young and up-and-comers, get recognized and get jobs, like D'Amico Ryans with the Houston Texans, right? So would I take him as an OC? Absolutely. There's very few people that I would take Pete Carmichael over. And that would be like, I would take him over Coach Mike. If you don't know who I'm talking about my high school football coach. And he won a state championship. Actually won 2 of them. I'd take Pete Carmichael over him. But as far as picking a head coach, it's definitely not easy. It's definitely not easy. 992 says, I don't like Carr's attitude. It's not like Breeze. If Breeze missed something, they could come and say, hey, you messed up. You don't see Carr ever stepping up. I do think that there's an accountability issue with both Derek Carr and this coaching staff. I will also say that, and if y'all disagree with this, it's completely okay. I do think that some fans are taking things way too far. I mean, we've got people going after this man's family on social media. I think that's taking it way too far. You know, booing him in the dome, I understand it. But again, like, what if we're booing anybody, for me, Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. And I guess that's just been the tangent I'm on. Like, I believe that when you suck, you're sucking from the top, not sucking from the bottom. And I don't need to hear anybody with your perverted minds keep your head out the gutter while we're talking. I think if a team is bad, you're bad because of coaching. But you can be great because of good players and good coaching. But very few teams that have good coaching are bad teams. Usually bad teams have bad coach because they're bad fundamentally. Like, they're missing a lot of tackles. Saw that against Detroit. You know, they're unable to secure key moments. See that in the Saints red zone. Bad teams are bad coaches. That's a correlation. You want to talk about, is Eric Bieniemy the reason that Patrick Mahomes isn't like MVP lighting it up? Hell, I honestly to God don't know, because Andy Reid has been a QB whisperer before Eric Bieniemy became anything, right? Like, Andy Reid's been doing amazing things for a long ass time. So I'm not about to like slander Patrick Mahomes just based on Eric Bieniemy or by extension Andy Reid. But I will tell you this, a bad team has a bad record, has a bad coach. That is almost a universal truth. And if you look around the league right now at the bad teams, like the Carolina Panthers, their coaches are getting fired, right? Look at the Arizona Cardinals and how many coaches they've gone through in recent years, right? They got Gannon now. They had Kingsbury for like 4 years before they got rid of him. And that's after he had an 11-win season. Then he won 4, and they're like, clearly didn't work. And they had Wilkes after Arians. They moved through, right? Bad teams have bad coaching. I think that's where New Orleans is at. And that's kind of like been a big thing for me all year. The front office, Miss Gale, Mickey Loomis, it's time to move it. And I'll be honest, in this whole Michael Thomas versus Dennis Allen debate, circle back around, I'm on team Michael Thomas. Honest to God, I am. I think I would rather watch a player who's passionate and wants to win than a coach who won't take accountability for why his team is losing. And when you have literally become known for making phrases like, we got to be better at every damn post-game press conference and keep doing what you're doing, yeah, I don't vibe with that. I really don't. I don't vibe with it. Right? So I'm on Michael Thomas's side. I'm not trying to be a hater because I do still stand by one fact, and I believe it wholeheartedly. Dennis Allen is one of the best defensive minds currently in the NFL. I'm not saying he's the best, but he's one of the best. And I will stand on that rock very strongly. But as a head coach, as the great Maya Angelou says, somebody shows you who they are, believe them. I said it about Pete Carmichael. What has Pete Carmichael done leading this team for almost 2 full seasons, right? Because you've played, 12 games? And you played 17. You got 30 games. You cannot tell me that you don't know or you don't have all the stuff together after 30 games. Let's talk about where the New Orleans Saints ranks because it's so kind of like misleading. They're the 11th ranked team in yards offensively. So on paper, they look like this great team. They're ranked 11th overall in offense. So first off, I hate that they rank teams overall by yardage. That's stupid. You don't know why? Because last year, they were 19th. Now, why do I bring that up? Because last year, they were 22nd in points. This year, they're 19th in points. I don't give a damn if they're 8 places better in yards. They're not anywhere better in points. They're still not scoring. Right? Here's another one. They have the 9th most rushing attempts in the NFL with the 19th most yards. And that's with freaking Taysom Hill. Passing offense, 3rd most attempts, 19th most touchdowns. Again, I'm not saying that Derek Carr is like no blame in any of this. I just did a whole thing about accountability. But bad teams have bad coaching. I think we got bad coaching. And the fact that DA won't hold his offensive coaching accountable, that's on him. The fact that he won't hold himself accountable for struggling against tight ends, mobile quarterbacks, and the running game, or the running defense, has currently gone kapooey for no damn reason, that's on him. Bad teams got bad coaches. 5-7 is a bad team. He is 41% winning percentage as the New Orleans Saints head coach. 41%. 41%. If they win out, because they've got 5 more games, or even if they win 4 more games, he can post a positive record on his resume finally. But this point doesn't matter. And let's talk about that rushing defense, by the way. 24th in yards allowed. 24th in yards allowed rushing defense. You know what they were last year? 24th. Didn't even get better. And their passing game has taken, or their passing defense has taken a step back. I think some of that is due to the lack of pass rush. Pass rush is worse this year than it was last year. But all these things I'm saying, man, comes back to that top. Fish says, luckily we got a top 10 pick, and I hope us being locked in with Carr doesn't stop us getting a quarterback for the future. We overpaid for Carr. I think Carr would be good price with a better coach like an Eric Bieniemy. But yeah, as of what you got right now, it's trash. It's trash, Fish. Absolutely. And they need to make a change. Samuel Porter just scored on us again. It feels like it, Eric, doesn't it? Super Capitalista says Thomas was completely out of line. He should be fined or released. Big Mouth ain't done crap in 4 years and he wants to throw a teammate under the bus. Quit pandering to a portion of your audience. I'm not pandering to anything. I'm telling you what I believe. Super Capitalista. Ain't nobody dropped a donation that said support Michael Thomas. Not a single person. Please find a donation to my PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, or even somebody who bought a damn t-shirt that said, you better support Michael Thomas or I'm going to refund this. I'm not pandering to anybody. I have no problem with what Michael Thomas said. I don't think he should be fined or released. I think the problem is this coaching staff won't take accountability, and the offensive players and the defensive players, like Colin Saunders talking about lack of preparation, are sick of the coaching staff sucking. Now, will I sit here and say that Michael Thomas is a great wide receiver? No, he's no longer a great wide receiver, but acting like he was doing nothing, he was the only guy who was consistently catching passes over the middle. Shout out to Juwan Johnson, who turns over the middle passes into interceptions. He was on pace for over 900 yards receiving before his injury. And yeah, he got injured. He's 30 plus years old coming off major injuries. He's never going to be that guy again. But let's not sit here and act like he wasn't doing well this year. He was doing extremely well. It was his best year since 2020. I'm not pandering to anybody. And honestly, just to be real, no offense to people who will listen to my show is too small and makes no money for me to bother pandering to anybody. Why the hell would I pander to anything? Y'all act like this podcast is out here making thousands of dollars a month. We have currently made $4.99. Thank you, by the way, to Fish. Thank you, by the way. Super Capital says you keep your complaints in the building as a class teammate. Bull. You know why? Because that's not what good players do. No, they call out things that need to be called out. And accountability is being able to say, I messed up. Sean Payton would do it. Drew Brees would do it. Nobody had to throw Drew Brees under the bus. He would do it himself. He would say he was the one who failed. He was the one who messed up. Sean Payton would say he was an idiot for calling that play. Please show me where DA's done it. Please show me where DA's done it. And that's part of the frustration of not just MT. Now, it's like I said earlier in the podcast, Alvin Kamara said the same thing. He just said it more tactful. He said it 3 weeks ago. He said that this team has no identity. But he said that the locker room is all on one page. That one requires a little bit more reading between the lines. Sure. Michael Thomas is a lot more like me. He's going to come out and say whatever the hell he wants to. I can't wait for Michael Thomas to one day have a podcast. Because Michael Thomas is just no filter. He's going to say exactly what he thinks, feels, and believes. That's exactly how I am. Alvin Kamara was simply more tactful, but he said the same thing. Accountability is probably the biggest issue with this coaching staff. And I'll be honest, I think accountability is the reason that Dennis Allen will never be a great head coach. I really do. Because he can clearly make great adjustments in a game. He can clearly create an incredible defense. But he creates something and he sticks with it, and he's going to ride that thing off into the sunset, whether it's the best option or not. I don't see how anybody can watch this offense go 5-7, watch this offense be top 10 in yards and basically 20th in the NFL in scoring and say, we need to stick with this offense and we'll just let it keep working. Let me remind you of some of the things that he keeps repeating at every freaking post game. We got to be better. Keep doing what you're doing. Or our most recent one, maybe we'll make a mug out of this. Keep chopping the wood. And if Michael Thomas gets released, it should be based on the fact that he can't play football anymore. And that's fine. Michael Thomas is old and beat up. He will be 31 years old, this upcoming March. And he's had multiple major lower leg injuries. I completely get it. He ain't that guy no more. Cool. But I got no issue with him saying the truth. That's just me. Crass says once the locker room is divided, you definitely have a coaching problem. And see, the crazy thing is, Crass, I still believe what AK said. The locker room's not divided amongst itself. But they are divided when it comes to between them and the coaching staff. And it's obvious when one side says we have no identity, and then the other side says, of course we have an identity. But then they can't tell you what the identity is. And that's frustrating. And as a fan, you should be frustrated. There's a reason that Saints fans are selling the lower bowl tickets out on StubHub and Ticketmaster, and they're being filled in by Lions fans. Right? And I think fans should speak like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, Super Cavalier says the ball should have been caught by Johnson. Absolutely. It was a great pass. Now, should he have thrown the first read that he watched happen to A.T. Perry for not only a longer completion, but literally no defenders in the area, and it was the proper read progression? Yeah. What did he say that was wrong? Is it just because Michael Thomas plays on the team, he can't call out a miss? But where that was wrong, right? Is it wrong to say that a badly thrown ball ends up resulting in a Chris Olave concussion? I mean, I guess if you're on the team, you can't say anything. Yes, it is what it is. The reason Michael Thomas literally put their bodies on the line for the Saints, just wish we had a championship for those years of winning. I agree, Dre. That's going to be one of those always coulda, woulda, shoulda moments. Gerald says the locker room is good. They're tired of DA and Sneaky Pete. That's what I think, Gerald. But again, I'm not in the locker room. I'm just a guy with a podcast and an amazing community. Whether you agree with me or not, I appreciate you for being here. Now, who dat and God bless to all of you. Who dat and God bless to every single one of you. So, Dre says, Breeze and MT. Oh, I already read that one. The coach is not leading, so why would you expect people, why do we expect players to be led? I think accountability is a big deal. I think if the coaching staff took more accountability for why things are failing instead of deflecting issues, I think the players would respect them more. Because we're not talking about a bunch of high schoolers here, right? These are all grown men. You know, Alvin Kamara is not some 19-year-old or some 17-year-old mouthing off to his freshman coach or something like that. Alvin Kamara is a grown-ass man, right? He's been playing the league 7 years, and he's seen it played at the highest level. As has DA, obviously, he was there for part of it. You know, their opinion should be respected. And just because you're the head coach does not make you immune from issue and from needing to take accountability. And it's like I said, bad teams have bad coaches. You can have good players and still be a bad team. Now, Godfather says, appreciate your Godfather support in the channel. I think Godfather is super capitalista. They log back into their main account. Says MT can't play anymore. I think he can play. He just can't play at a high level. Right message, wrong messenger. MT has never taken accountability for his mistakes. He blamed the training staff, Breeze, and Peyton throughout the years for his own shortcomings. Cam is the voice. Now, I will say this, and I know you're just now coming in, Godfather. I did make sure to mention earlier that Michael Thomas is not his first time to go on a Twitter rant that he probably shouldn't have. And he did do that a couple of times when Sean Payton and Drew Brees were here. That did happen. But at the same time, I don't think what he said is wrong either. I think Michael Thomas is what Michael Thomas is. But at the same time, he ain't wrong. It's kind of like you said, Godfather, right message, wrong messenger. But I also think that the message was said clearly by a well-respected locker room guy in Alvin Kamara, and still nothing changed. Brent says, if Dennis Allen manages to get this team to the playoffs, will he do enough to save his job? Yes. Yes. Charles says, Dalton was better. Are you ready to admit it? Nope. Because Pete Carmichael sucks. No. There's nothing on tape that tells me Andy Dalton's better quarterback than Derek Carr. Can you argue both are mid-tier? Sure. But man, tape is pretty damn evident that Pete Carmichael sucks, which is why people are calling him out on a national level. Like when Marcus Spears did it. I mean, we can definitely blame. It's hilarious that we blamed, and we're rightly blaming, Derek Carr a lot this year for not progressing through reads, yet he literally progressed through a read on the Juwan Johnson interception. He literally skipped over the wide open read, watched it happen, and then took the check down that Juwan should have caught. Still should have caught it, right? But, yeah. Dalton didn't turn the locker room against him? Sure. I mean, if this is all based on who's better in a locker room favorite, cool. Andy Dalton wins. Hell, by that argument, Jameis Winston wins. Cool. If that's the argument, awesome. I don't think Andy Dalton ever tried to have the locker room either. Andy was just here. Andy was happy to be here and have a job. So, is what it is, right? Andy was happy playing football. But also, Andy Dalton didn't really believe that he was going to be the answer either. That dude signed a backup quarterback contract and was happy to be the backup, just like he was happy to go do the same thing over in Carolina. And more power to him. The dude's going to end up having had, a 15-year NFL career. He made like 3 Pro Bowls. How long has he been in the NFL now? Got to be like 13 years because he was with Cincy for 9, 10. And then he was with, Dallas for a year. He was here in New Orleans with Carolina. When he was Chicago. I mean, he's bounced around, right? So shout out to him. I'm glad that he's had a career. But I'm not going to pretend like last year he was a phenomenal player either. I think the common denominator of who sucks is the coaching staff. But I think that doesn't mean that you can't call out Derek Carr for sucking. And that doesn't mean that you can't call out other guys for not. I mean, Juwan Johnson has underperformed more than anybody for me personally because of the expectations I have. I never had Derek Carr throwing 40 TDs and being insane expectations. I did have Juwan Johnson could potentially become 1,000-yard tight end, 10 TD tight end expectations. And that has fallen flat on its damn face. So there's plenty of disappointment to go around. We can talk about defensively how Cameron Jordan has continued to take a step backwards. How Demario Davis is not the coverage linebacker that he used to be, even though he still plays at a very high level inside the box and attacking down. We can talk about all those things, but I still think the bigger issues are, those are all issues. I think the biggest issue is, and I say this confidently, the New Orleans Saints will never be a winning, consistent team with Pete Carmichael at the play calling position and, more importantly, Dennis Allen as the head coach. I don't think this team will ever be a winner with that combo. So we can gripe about all these other things, and I'm not even trying to dismiss them and say that if you think Derek Carr sucks, that's illegitimate. Cool. That's fine. But I think we've seen enough. I said 2 years ago, Dennis Allen has earned a chance to show if he's got it. I said that. I said he's earned a chance to show if he can be a better head coach this time. Well, we've seen it. We've seen Pete Carmichael now, and we've seen Dennis Allen, and it clearly isn't working. So now I stand in the camp of get rid of him. And we can debate Derek Carr, Andy Dalton. Those are whatever debates for me. It's fine. We can do it if we're bored. If we want to have fun, let's compare apples and oranges, or I guess in this case, redheads and emos. But whatever side you fall on there, I think that's a small potato to the bigger issue, which is that you got a losing head coach who's not going to be any better, and you got a play caller who clearly was living in the shadow of a Hall of Fame coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback and is maybe great at game planning. Maybe. Jacob says Saints will end up losing a bunch of good players before the coaching changes. I hate to say it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I hope you're wrong, Jacob, but you could be right. I hope you're wrong, but it could be right. You think Carr plays scared? Hell, Bruce Irvin said it. I don't know how many people caught it. Bruce Irvin actually came out and said that Derek Carr plays rattled when defenders get close to it. Bruce Irvin came out and called it out. Carr says, remember when I was mad the year we passed on Jordan Love in the draft? We'd be sitting pretty right now with a franchise quarterback. I don't know if I'm ready to agree with you that Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback, but I will agree with you that I think that the New Orleans Saints should have done more to get a quarterback, even if that had been Lamar Jackson. Because y'all were here, or many of you were here. I was convinced in that trade up, it wasn't Davenport, it was Lamar. I was convinced, and I was wrong. Now, I'm not convinced that Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback, but I would say at least this, I will at least agree in principle that Green Bay's future quarterback looks a hell of a lot more bright than New Orleans by a lot. I will give you that argument. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to Jordan Love being a franchise quarterback because a franchise quarterback to me is somebody that you're going to stick with for a good decade. I mean, that's a Lamar Jackson type, a Patrick Mahomes type. I don't know if he's that. I can tell you that the situation is a hell of a lot nicer in Green Bay for quarterbacks than it is for the New Orleans Saints. No offense, Jake Haener, who could end up being the saving grace of all of us. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. The unknown factor is Mickey is keeping a positive facade until the end of the season and then makes changes. I mean, I will say that Mickey has never been a guy to call out players, coaches, etc. midseason. He's never done that I can't think of a single time in the 20 plus years he's been here, back when he was director of player personnel and general manager, has he ever just come out and said, yeah, this guy sucks, we got to make a change. I can't think of it. It could have happened, but I don't remember it. So he could be playing those cards close to his vest. I honest to God don't know. I hope he is. I really do. Because I don't see how you can watch 2 seasons of this and think that it's going to improve. Godfather says, I said 2 years ago, Dennis Allen was Wade Phillips 2.0. How many chances are we going to give these assistants a shot at HC? This is why we have the Rooney Rule. Well, I honestly don't know how much that has to do with the Rooney Rule, unless you think that the Saints could have got D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick, and we passed on it specifically for, Dennis Allen. But I do agree with you that the experiment to me should be done. I think so. The experiment should be done. Didn't work out. That's okay. Cool. Hasta la vista, baby. Right? Right. Cool. Thumbs up. We agree. I hope we agree. If you don't agree, I respect you if you don't agree. So as far as coaching, though, just to give reference, just because you brought up Wade Phillips' career coaching was 56%. Now, when he was with New Orleans, remember he only coached 4 games in New Orleans. He was the interim. They went 1-3, and he left afterwards. But Wade Phillips at least had a winning record with every team he coached for an entire season. He had a winning record with that team for every team he coached with. So Dallas, he was 34-22. Buffalo, 29-19. Denver, he went 500 at 16-16. But for teams that he coached full seasons, he at least was winning games. He might not have been doing anything fantastic, like winning playoffs, but he at least was winning enough. Saints aren't even doing that. Saints aren't even doing that. What is DA, mid-30s? Are you asking his age? Because he's like 59. Or are you asking his record? Because Dennis Allen has actually, this is going to be disturbing to some viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Dennis Allen has actually risen his win percentage with the Saints, thanks to the Saints. He's 41% with New Orleans, but 30.8% in his career as a head coach. Because he went 8-28 with the Raiders. 8-28. He's gone 12-17 with New Orleans so far. So it's almost like you just threw unnecessary shade at Wade Phillips. I agree with B. Hyde. B. Hyde said the idea of DA was great. We wanted to keep what we had. We felt like we were the cusp of the Super Bowl. Hopefully Mickey is working on getting DA to be the DC under an offensive coach. Maybe. I said at the time, and y'all can go back to these podcasts and know that I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I did say these things. He was not my first choice. If y'all remember, we actually made a bracket about who we wanted to be the Saints head coach, and I think DA was like number 3 on my list. I would have taken him, but he definitely wasn't my first choice, and I understood the logic. But it clearly hasn't worked. Time to move on. Regardless of what happens this year, I honestly don't care. I'll say it openly. If the Saints win out, like the Saints go 10-7, and they win the division, and they go to the playoffs, I still want Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael fired. Because I believe if they do that, they did it on the back of a talented roster, not because of the coaching staff. And I know normally I don't do a podcast that's just based on opinion, right? Normally we try to stick to analytics and we try to stick to film. That's just my honest feeling watching DA for 2 years. Even if you run the table and go 10-7, I'd still fire him. 992 says, why are the Saints scared to draft a quarterback in this is Archie Manning back in 71. That's crazy. Probably the longest without drafting a quarterback in the league. And talking about drafting a first-round quarterback. I honestly don't have the answer to that question, but it's a great question, 992. I wish I had the answer for you supporting the channel. Appreciate it. But I honest to God don't know. Nolan says, Denise Alex is good DC. That's rude. Dennis Allen is a good DC, but he's not a good head coach. Even with the post-game conferences, he can't say nothing promising. Speaking of, if you haven't already, make sure... Hey, Godfather, why don't you do this? Godfather, you want to buy like 5 of these for everybody? I figured you'd get a kick out of these shirts. We've got the We Gotta Be Better t-shirt, the Keep Doing What You're Doing shirt, a matching hat, and a mug. Celebrate your favorite mediocre head coach in New Orleans Saints history by going over to my website and supporting the channel at the same time. Rock it, wear it to the dome. Let everybody know who your favorite mediocre head coach is in the NFL. Super says, enjoy your videos, but we're going to disagree on MT. Right observation, but wrong delivery method and timing on his part. Respect you for feeling the way that you feel. I have always been a guy who appreciates and is okay with expressive and demonstrative players. But here's the key. You have to have a very good head coach who has good control over the locker room to handle those type of players. And DA can't do it. DA can't handle that. DA is not a good enough head coach to do that. Sean Payton would put Michael Thomas in his place when it was needed, and Michael Thomas would still go out there and catch 10 for 130. All right? Sean Payton was the type of head coach who could handle those type of personalities. DA does not handle, which is why there's a divide between locker room and coaching staff. That's also one of the main reasons that no matter what, even if they ran the table, I'd still stand here and go, new coach, new play caller. I would still do it. Still do it. Rubber says, I'm starting to think DA's success as a DC had more to do with personnel. Now, see, that part I will disagree with, Rubber. Having gotten to study extensively DA's scheme and how he's changed it over the year based on players. To be very clear, the New Orleans Saints defense today is way different than 6 years ago. DA is very good at scheming and designing his defense, and he's very good at in-game adjustments. So I'm not going to be with you on that point just because I've studied an ass ton. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be bleeping these. An ass ton of DA film defensively. He is a very good head coach. Now, does having good players help? Absolutely. But you look at him doing a lot of Tampa 2 right now based on his personnel. You go a year or two ago, we were mostly running like quarters and quarters match. Go about 3 or 4 years ago, you're running cover three match. Go even further back then, Marcus Williams rookie year, you're running Tampa 2. So, again, DA as a defensive guy, I've watched enough tape over the past 6 years for me to say confidently, I believe he is a very good defensive coordinator. I just don't think that he's a good head coach. Godfather says, if I ordered those shirts, they would never deliver just like DA. Look here, man, don't insult my website just because we're throwing shade at DA. My website will definitely deliver you the t-shirt. It will definitely deliver you the t-shirt. Don't insult my website. They're great t-shirts, man. I worked really hard to design those. I'm very proud of them. If you can't tell, I am very proud of my t-shirts. I really am. They make me laugh every time I look at them. So anyway, what I don't understand is how can someone be such a good defensive coach and not be able to say the offense is garbage? You have to understand offense to defend it. I wish I had an answer, man, but I'll just say this. Some guys are better coordinators than head coaches. Some guys are better, being assistant managers than managers. There's some people who are designed to do good things and some people who are designed to do other things. I just don't think he's a good head coach. I just don't. And I honestly, God, I think he's a guy that no offensive coordinator who's on the up and up is going to try to come play for. I don't think that anybody, whether it's a college football or somebody in the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree or, the Philbin coaching tree, which is where Ben Johnson comes from, or even the Sean Payton coaching tree, is going to go, oh, I want to go coach for Dennis Allen. I don't think that's a thing. I really don't. So I think he's got to go no matter what, because I just don't think the team will have success while he's here. But that's just me. That's just me. Nobody likes DA? Yeah, well, as long as y'all like me, because I'm sensitive. I'm a sensitive soul, so I need y'all to like me. And like the podcast while you're here, by the way. Hit the thumbs up button if you're watching live. But I mean, it's like I said in the beginning, this is why I side with Michael Thomas. Can I understand the point that TJ and capitalists are making when they say that a player shouldn't go off mouthing like Michael Thomas has? I understand their point. But at the same time, I sit here going, I don't care, because if you had a good coaching staff, they could handle a Michael Thomas type. If you had a good coaching staff, this roster would have 10 wins right now. You give the Kyle Shanahan coaching staff over here, you give freaking Campbell and Johnson and Aaron Glenn this roster and tell me that they don't have 9 or 10 wins right now. I know I'm playing a lot of what-if football, but I believe it. I really do. I believe if you take the Houston coaching staff, the San Francisco coaching staff, the Detroit coaching staff, the Kansas City coach, I think if you take those coaching staffs and give them the New Orleans roster, they're winning 10 games. I just do. And I don't think DA is going to ever do that. In 3 years with Oakland, granted he didn't make it the third year, didn't even win 10 games. Glenn isn't any good? I think Glenn's okay. Do I think Glenn's as good as DA? Absolutely not. But do I think that this roster, talent-wise, defensively, is good enough for Aaron Glenn to be good enough and the rest of the roster with guys like Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell to win more games than what Dennis Allen is doing? Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll take Glenn if he comes with Campbell? Yeah, well, I just said it was a package deal. I mean, if you go toe-to-toe Aaron Glenn versus DA, I'm taking DA every damn time. No offense, Aaron Glenn. I just am. DA is proven to be good at his job as a defensive play caller. But if we're talking about entire rosters where I've got Woods, Allen, Carmichael, and subordinates versus Glenn Campbell and Johnson, give me Glenn Campbell Johnson. Even sounds like a better law firm. Glenn Campbell and Johnson. I feel like I'm about to win multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Allen, Carmichael, and Wood? Man, that sounds like a logging company. They're hauling trucks across the Great White North. So, yeah. That's just what I think. Glenn's defense is showing cracks. Look, Paul, again, I'm not here to argue that Aaron Glenn is an amazing DC. I already acknowledge that DA is an amazing DC. But what I'm saying is he an amazing head coach? No, because an amazing head coach isn't saying we got to be better after every damn game. He isn't saying keep doing what you're doing when your team can't score in the red zone and you've lost 7 games. Right? He's not yeah, I'm glad somebody got the chopping wood reference. Thank you, AJ. Appreciate you. He's not telling you to keep chopping the wood when you just went to 3rd place in the damn division. So anyway, that's why I sided with Michael Thomas. Whether or not it was the right way to do it, we can debate that all day long, and I'm more than happy to, although we can't because we are running out of time. But I do stand on the point that I side with Michael Thomas because I believe that's siding with the players, and the players are better than the coaching staff. Players are better than the coaching staff. If you haven't joined the Discord already, you should. And if you want to make your friends laugh at the water cooler, pick you up a t-shirt. And if you want to support the channel, we got PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. It's optional. You don't have to do it. How much of the defensive collapse is attributed to Woods? I think most of the defensive collapse is contributed to age. Age and injury. Dennis Allen's fascination with developmental prototype defensive ends, or his prototype for defensive ends, has definitely cost his team some good defensive options. I think they have a stud group of DBs, but their linebacker core is struggling with an aging DeMario, and now Pete Warner's hurt. And they have not fixed that run defense, especially because of the linebacker issues. But anyway, we got to wrap it up, y'all. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. I think y'all are all fantastic. I hope you enjoyed the episode, even if you agree or disagree. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be back Thursday where hopefully we'll have an update on Derek Carr's injury, and we'll know if he's starting or not. I'll be honest, him having 2 concussions in the past couple months, I think that he should sit and Jameis should start. Not even that I'm saying that Jameis is going to be amazing, but I just think that Derek Carr, literally for his own health, needs to sit his down, and we'll see what happens. But y'all are all incredible. Who Dat Nation is the best nation in all football. And hopefully the Pelicans can win tonight so the New Orleans can experience winning. Who Dat, God bless. I will catch y'all on the next podcast Thursday night. Deuces, that's me. See you then.